All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Rebuild California Town Hall meeting. My name is Tim Holliday, your host. Before we start ringing the bells in for our new year here, we're going to give a quick moment of silence for Kelly Irby, who had passed away a couple of days ago. She was a good politician down in Southern California, so we can bow our heads for just a moment. Rest her soul. She was a good person from what I hear. All right, so we're going to ring in the bells.
Kelly Irby was a true patriot and a good friend and a champion of the recall and a good friend of ours. And she's going to be missed dearly. We will never know the true value of what she had to offer our society. But her loss is definitely felt deep and wide, and we're going to miss her greatly.
And I'm going to want to play on that a little bit. This is Mike Netter. I knew Kelly very well personally. And look, before we get into our regular show, life is a journey. And one of the reasons we are here every week, and we're delighted to have people like Kevin Kiley on, is Kelly, for those of you that don't know, was a district attorney.
She was a district attorney prosecutor. There's a distinction.
I understand. And she didn't need to do this. Like many of us out there don't need to do this. We do this because we care. And as we ring in 2022, we continue the fight. I hope everybody out there had a delightful holiday, had a chance to hug their loved ones, and got to understand that the journey that we embarked on in 2021 to take back our state of California continues on a multi-frontal attack in 2022, where we went to remove, notice I didn't use the word take out, Orrin, removed the governor of California in 2021. I know that for those of you watching. This year, we are using a multi-frontal attack to continue the battle to take back our state. And for those of you that weren't paying attention, direct democracy and regular democracy. And for all of you out there, it's up to us, the people, to do what we have to do to take back our state. And I'm going to talk about this after we have the star of the show, which is, of course, Kevin Kiley on tonight. What I'm going to talk about is, again, everybody out there, if you're watching on Facebook, you're watching on YouTube, one of the 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 people that watch us, remember, you can participate. Whether you follow Orrin and myself on Twitter, I'm at Netter Mike. Whether you participate in the Facebook groups, it's up to us to spread the word. And the battle, if you will, that we're putting forth in our communities to take back our state is penetrating deeply throughout races in state assembly, congressional races, initiatives, all kinds of things going on this year. Orrin, you want to weigh in on that before I bring in the real star of the show?
Well, I'm going to weigh in really quick.
I want to
here,
shout
Mike.
out to Norma from King City and just say hi and thank you for joining the show. Tim, what did you have?
Be sure to sign up on rebuildcalifornia.com. So it's www.rebuildcalifornia.com to receive our newsletters, to find out some of the latest things as well as who our guests are. And so as we're ringing
connected, stay in touch.
Exactly. So as we're ringing in the bells for the new year, we are also ringing in the bells because the state assembly and the state legislation, state senators are out of recess. So their recess is over. So we got to pay a lot of careful attention. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to go to Kevin. I'm delighted
now more than ever.
Exactly. And for everybody out there, I am so delighted to have Kevin Kiley on the show tonight. And Kevin is a state assembly person who ran for governor. And as you know, supported by the people of California. And Kevin, I got a lot of questions for you tonight. And you may or may not have a big announcement allegedly, but here's one of the things I want to ask you.
Allegedly.
But here's one of the things I want to ask you.
I know.
No, the first day out of recess.
All right. Kevin,
the
welcome
state
to the
assembly.
show. Kevin, Kiley, there are people far and wide that have joined us tonight that are excited about having you, on the show, and me included. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. I think you and Mike got your wires crossed there. Are you
We
still
got
with
him a
us,
little
Mike?
cross because Orrin's bandwidth is a little bit low, and I think he's
Ah.
checking in. Okay, I can see that on my control screen. But Kevin, here's the question I have before we get started. You came out of recess, and you talk in the videos all the time about the corruption and the piggy bank on the state. And the first day out of recess, Loretta Gonzalez announces she's leaving, triggering maybe a special election, to take a job with one of the largest unions in California out of the gate. Start us off by telling how you feel about that piggy bank.
Well, it wasn't a big shock. Everyone knew this was coming, and it's been in the works. It is, interesting that we heard during the recall, like, special election is so costly. We're so concerned about the taxpayers, and we're just really we're showing fiscal restraint. We can't have a recall; it's too costly. And now, but it's perfectly fine to have a special election in order to resign to make a huge salary as a lobbyist. So it just kind of goes to show what a farce that argument was all along.
One of the questions I have, Kevin, before we get started, and you and I know each other well enough where I want to ask you a few tonight. When I used to work with the federal sector, there is a federal law that says once you leave a position, you can't go to work for one of these big unions or donors for a year for a cooling off period. I guess there isn't a law like that in the lovely state of California.
I don't know the specifics of it. I think that there is. It says that you're not allowed to lobby for a year, but I guess her role doesn't necessarily entail lobbying, so they might. I don't know the specifics of it, but there is a year-long limitation that exists, and I think that's what it is.
Because you just found a loophole that. So, Kevin, tell us what you've been up to lately, because you've sure been in the news, and I'm going to let you run for about 15 minutes here because we've got Prop 47. I got kicked out of school once, as you know, and you apparently were kicked off the education committee. So maybe we share. So tell us about what you're doing, what's going on, and about Prop 47. The floor is yours.
Yeah, you bet. Well, thanks everyone for joining and for continuing to help this movement grow. I think that it's only continued to gather strength in the last several months. And so, yeah, as Mike said, the legislature's back in town now, which is usually not good news for anyone. Although now that we've seen what Gavin Newsom does on his own, I mean, it's kind of mixed. At least there's some semblance of a representative branch of the government there. Interestingly enough, though, we've all been kicked out of the Capitol. So all of our offices have been moved across the street. The reason for that is that there's a $1.2 billion renovation of the Capitol going on. Your tax dollars, again, very concerned about the cost of a recall election, but we can spend much more than that renovating the Capitol. And I voted against that, by the way. But this is going to take, they're saying like 5 years, but it probably is more. So no one's going to have an office in the Capitol for a long time. We've all been moved to what they're calling the swing space, which is a couple blocks away. So that's one thing, although we still do have the general sessions of the Assembly and the Senate inside of the Capitol. So we've all come back. Not a lot happens at the first few weeks that the legislature's back usually, or at least the first week or so. And in these even numbered years, it actually picks up a little more quickly because it's the second year of the 2-year session. But yeah, so as far as Prop 47 goes, we've of course had just like these unbelievable incidents, or that's probably not the right word, incidents. I mean, like just complete demolitions of retail, locations where people come in with these smash and grab robberies, and they're like at the entrance, they're like, okay, do you have a vaccine card or a hammer? One or the other, and you can come in. It's like, it's just crazy. what we're seeing. And, a lot of this stems from Prop 47, which went into effect in 2014. It said that, it did a lot of things, but when it comes to theft in particular, it says that as long as you steal less than $950 in any one, theft, then that cannot be charged as a felony. It has to be.
And Kevin, if I can clarify, was Prop 47 labeled, was it titled the Safe Schools and Safe Neighborhood Act?
Yeah, I think that was it. It was like the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act. That's exactly right. So it was completely, people say this is a voter initiative.
Kamala Harris was the one who drafted that.
Correct.
Deceptive, very deceptive title for that proposition.
You're right. Yeah. Kamala Harris, in the tradition of California attorneys general, she was probably perhaps the worst. They completely distort the description of the initiatives in order to fool people. It's outright fraud. They're literally deceiving people in order to get the outcome.
And Prop 47 achieved 180 degrees from where it was intended. It actually achieved the exact opposite of what the title had eluded people to believe, right?
Oh, absolutely. And predictably so. I mean, the law enforcement coalition that was against it from the start warned that this was precisely what was going to happen. It also essentially decriminalized drug possession. So, or at least made that only chargeable as a misdemeanor. It's not worth bringing people in for that. So that's why you can walk in down San Francisco and you see open drug use on the streets. It's a larger one. There's a lot of reasons for that actually in San Francisco, but that's certainly one of them, is that we've essentially decriminalized it. And so when it comes to the theft part of it, though, people can walk into any store. They can go into Target, they can go into Walgreens, they can go into, what are the places that have been robbed in some of these kind of higher end places. And as long they literally will take their calculator, they'll add up all this. Okay, I'm at 900. I'm good. I can walk out, no consequence. And then, when you don't have consequences for crime, what do you know? There's more crime. And so you've had this epidemic of retail theft, and then it just sort of has continued to grow. And so people, when they don't get caught committing crimes, well, guess what? They graduate to higher crimes. They get more organized. So you have this organized retail theft. You have these big smash and grab robberies. And there's been this huge surge in crime in California. The murder rate is as high as it's been in a long, long time in California. So we just have to sort of restore the rule of law in this state. And I think that the single most important thing that we could do is to reverse Prop 47. Now, Prop 47 was passed by voters, which means that it can only be repealed by voters. So there's two ways that you can get a proposition on the ballot. Either you can go out and collect all the signatures, which, as you know, better than anyone, is very hard work and takes a lot of effort. So the odds of getting that are not particularly high, but the legislature can also put an initiative on the ballot directly in order to ask the voters to do something that the legislature itself cannot do, like repeal an initiative that's been passed by the voters. So that's what my legislation would do. Is I'm saying, look, this was passed in 2014. We have been living in this Prop 47 world now for 7 years. Voters have seen the consequences of it, and we should have a vote again, whether they want to keep this. And I'm confident that if it actually has a fair vote, then people will say, no, we want to go on a whole new course here. And I think that, what would follow is perhaps rolling back some of these other terrible liberalization measures and actually, restoring respect for law enforcement.
Kevin, what's the difference? I think I believe it's another Democrat is proposing, lowering the threshold of what you can steal, which with inflation, whatever. From the 950 to, I think, back to 400 or 450. But you and James Gallagher, your partner in crime, all puns intended, are proposing even more changes to it. Explain for our audience the difference between what the Democrats proposing and the more upheaval you're talking about to it.
Right. So Rudy Solis says he wants to lower the threshold to $450. So all of the problems I just described will still exist. It's just that when you add up the apparel and the merchandise with your calculator, you can only go up to 450 rather than 950. So, okay, that's better, but that's a marginal change. The entire premise of the law of the initiative is flawed, which is to say that it takes discretion away from prosecutors, away from the courts, to charge these offenses as felonies. That doesn't mean they have to be charged as felonies. There might be cases where you don't for whatever reason, certainly the guarantee that you won't be charged as a felon has taken away the deterrent to engage in this sort of criminal activity. So, if Rudy's thing was the only option, okay, I guess I'd vote for that to make it a little better, but clearly it's not a solution.
In addition, they try to quash your voice all the time. And I love the blog that you put out, by the way. We retweet that across social media and everything else. I think you're one of the few politicians that kind of talks the people through the blog on a regular basis. And I've also got to tell you, for everybody out there that doesn't know, Kevin writes his own blog. It's not written by a crew of people, etc. It's actually written by you. And talk about being kicked off the education committee, because I found that kind of humorous, for lack of a better term, because you spoke up against what's going on. So how does that process take place? Do they come in and physically remove you? I mean, the sergeant of arms last time we were there approached me and Orrin to throw us out of the room. Is that how that's done?
I was threatened to be arrested if I didn't stop talking.
Wow. Yeah, well, that sounds about right. I mean, this is at least, they gave you a little bit of love in the process. For me, it was, just completely unceremonious. They put out a bulletin saying that I was out. I was no longer vice chair, no longer on the committee after 5 years.
So Kevin, you have, recently exposed some of the flaws in the education system. And so you're being silenced by the opposition. From my perspective, you're being silenced by the opposition, basically being told to, sit down and shut up, because, you have effectively secured the resignation of 2 equity czars. Who are these people? They're equity what? I don't know their title, but you exposed them. They don't live in California. One lives in Texas. The other one in Philadelphia?
Yeah.
And they're drawing an annual income of $180,000 or $160,000 plus, right?
Correct.
Taxpayer money. And you expose them. They don't live here. They're not eligible to be a state employee, and they resigned. And then days later, you're removed from that committee.
It's very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, the incident you're referring to is it's just like unbelievable. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So the director of equity, or what was it, superintendent of equity? That's what they called him. That's his position. This position did not exist until like a year ago.
Equity.
Whatever
the hell equity is.
They created.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that. What does that mean? Even
we don't know what that means. Who knows what it means? What the position is? Superintendent of equity. This guy is he has a job in Philadelphia. That's where he lives. That's where he works. And his job is he's a life coach. He's like a self-help guru. I mean, you can actually go and like watch his promo video on YouTube. And so
I'm not inclined to do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. So we're like, how does this guy, become the director of equity here in California? Well, what do you know? He was a groomsman in the wedding of our state schools chief, the superintendent of public instruction, Tony Thurmond. So isn't that interesting? It just kind of is the ultimate example.
A personal family friend, when you talk about no-show jobs and the California mafia that we all live under right now, that's kind of that's where I'm coming from is,
Right.
I understand that is a no-show job.
Oh, yeah, of course. He's not even in the state. And that is illegal under state law. Is actually, you are not allowed, except under some very limited circumstances, to be a state employee if you don't live in the state. And so that's why they had to resign. Is I wrote this letter asking, okay, what's going on here? Is this legal? And then he resigned. So, but get back to the education thing. I mean, I've been, the biggest critic of what the governor has done, especially when it comes to education. And that is also the area where I think that is fueling this movement the most, is parents are seeing how this corruption is harming their kids in so many different ways. And so I think that they understand the power of this movement, and they figure that, having someone on the education committee who is speaking out is helping to grow the movement. And so this is their attempt to try to, use their power to, quash this threat. But it's absolutely not going to work because
and you, Kevin Kiley, are the only one that was on that committee that was in education, that was from education.
Well, I was a teacher, yeah. So it's, which is why I wanted to be on the committee. I care about, educational opportunity. I've been trying to advance that for the 5 years I've been on that committee. And so for them to just suddenly say, oh, you're out, and then not even give a reason, by the way, it just shows you, that they're unwilling to even allow opposition to be voiced. It's not enough to have a supermajority. It's not enough to use every instrumentality of their power to benefit their cronies and the special interests. They need to find ways to make people not even be able to speak out against them.
And Kevin, that's kind of what I led with, that I find annoying and confusing. There's a fine line between the law, the rule of law, the ethics of the law, the look of, what Loretta Gonzalez is doing. She supposedly has been fighting for the people, right? But the reality is, to come back on, again, we all know who follow the political rumble this was happening. But it just, the look of the fact that someone who is the equivalent, correct me if I'm wrong, of kind of Speaker of the House, correct? In the California
well,
state.
her role was the appropriations chair, but she's, widely considered probably, one of the few most powerful legislators.
Right. To then split for a better job, basically, before her term is even up. I mean, it's just, does anybody even in the hallways, even the Democrats, rumble about that? Because we've had something like, correct me if I'm wrong, 6 or 8 resignations, or we're going to have a special guest on in a second to talk about that. But we've had, they leave before their term is even up. But this one with Gonzalez,
I'm not sure anybody on this call would question her leaving.
No. I only question her leaving.
I know, I get it.
Because of where she's going.
Gone and stand and applaud to her leaving and vacating.
My question for Kevin is, don't even some of the Democratic Assembly people kind of grumble about it, or do they? Is simply most of them not care at all? I mean, just say, oh well,
we don't really care about the people. It's just her taking a book deal, Mike. She's taking a book deal.
Well, I have a curious question for Kevin. So next week on the 10th, there's some hearings coming up, and I believe she's supposed to be in on one of them for ACR 109, extreme heat state response. How is that going to work if she resigned her position?
Well, they'll have to find someone else, I guess, because the position will be vacant until they have a special election, which will be, several months away. And again, at large taxpayer expense. But Mike, there are people, there are probably a few people who think it's untoward, and this is, but to be honest with you, for a lot of the members of the legislature, our whole political class, the corruption is so thoroughly ingrained that it's like, it doesn't faze them at all. This is just kind of the way things are done. And, the dominance of the massive unions and the special interests and lobbyists at our Capitol is so complete. They control the Capitol so completely that to have someone become a lobbyist, it's kind of like the same job in a sense. You're just kind of doing their bidding either way.
And that's kind of the point I'm trying to make, Kevin, that business as usual in Sacramento needs to be overturned, because the reality is when you go up there, they just don't really give a damn. I mean, Newsom promised all these tests to schools that have been delivered, right? I just can't imagine anything more screwed up than this infrastructure. And then at this time and let's not forget, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Assemblyman, soon to maybe be something else, Kiley, that Hey, I'm moving towards the pitch before I get to the next one.
Good lead in,
That-
Mike. Good lead in.
Yes, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't we still technically under a state of emergency?
Yes, we are. I mean, the state of emergency is still in effect, and it will continue to be apparently until Gavin Newsom is no longer governor, because he's even said, or his health secretary has said, they don't have any even like definition or metrics or anything like that standard for when the emergency will end.
So let me get this straight. Now I understand that, but I'm driving to a point before I run out of time. The ship of California apparently, allegedly, headed towards an iceberg with 40 million people on it, which has a crew of about 125 people. 10 of the crew are basically jumping ship during the state of emergency, which we're technically still under. So we're having people resign or take better jobs, better jobs outside the crew while we're allegedly headed towards an iceberg. And I don't hear a peep about that. But am I missing something here? We're under a state of emergency, but it's okay. I gotta go. Is basically their attitude.
No, I don't think you're missing anything. And the governor himself has been vacationing in Cabo, going on a book tour, all during a state of emergency. So it is, it's just such a farce at this point, Mike.
A book tour, Kevin. Come on now.
In New York.
Hey, and I share a character flaw with the governor. I share that. I'm dyslexic. Okay. So be it. Maybe I'll write a book.
Kevin, we have a question. Yeah, I know.
I was just going to tell Orrin, don't forget to go trick-or-treating for 10 days.
Right. Trick-or-treating for 10 days. Or by the way, I would, and I'm going to, just before, and I'm going to hit it again before we have a question, Kevin, and then I'm going to roll you 5 more minutes here. And by the way, if you're not going trick-or-treating and you're the governor of California trying to help the economy, please spend your Thanksgiving at a $29,000 a night resort, food is included, in Mexico.
Mike, we try not to judge. We try not
Hold
to
on.
judge. I know.
It's in Mexico.
There are no resorts like that here in California.
I understand. And also there's
None
no
of them
resorts in
did.
California.
You can't judge the man.
It's in Mexico. And it's owned by a Russian billionaire who's up on corruption charges from Russia. Kevin, do you think Gavin went down there to take corruption lessons from the Russian billionaire? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I don't know what he was doing, but he certainly was not here attending to the apparently pressing emergency that is ongoing. And I think that is very telling.
And I just have to say, and thank you, Cheryl. Yes, you're right. Dyslexia is not a character flaw. And Burton Brink, God bless my friend. We share the same malfunction.
Anyway, CRT, we have one more question for you from the audience, and I'm sure lots afterwards. Kevin, is there anything that could be done about the CRT that's coming up, the opportunity to repeal
What is CRT?
Public education?
Yeah, there was the bill that would make it a graduation requirement for high schools.
Good Lord, like we don't need civics taught in schools.
Right.
We need CRT.
That's right, exactly. We need civics. Instead, we get the opposite of it. So it's been signed by the governor, and it is set to go into effect in a few years. But it has to be implemented at the school board level. So what you can do, short of getting it repealed, which would be optimal, is to work with your school boards to at least try to water it down so it's less indoctrinating than what the state and the legislature and the governor want. But it is absolutely outrageous. In other states, the debate is whether to allow it into schools. They're banning it from schools. In California, we're requiring it in schools. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Kevin, before we wrap up here, how do people make sure they get your blog? I'm on your email list. I get your blog. And how do they find out what the next steps for Kevin Kiley is? Because every day somebody asks me, what's up with Kevin Kiley. And every day I say, you'll have to talk to Kevin on our show. So Kevin, what do you got to say?
Well, if you want to get the blog, you can just go to, it's called Capital Quagmire. If you, or you can.
Come on, Kevin, we're simple people and we went to public school.
Or
We
just
can't
Google
spell quagmire.
Kevin Kiley blog. That'll bring it up, or do that on DuckDuckGo. You can sign up there. If you go to the bottom of the page, there's just a thing you put in your email to sign up. As far as what I'm going to do next, I've been thinking really hard about what role I can play to keep the movement growing. So keep an eye out tomorrow. If you sign up for my email list, then you will, or for the blog, then I'll put it on there tomorrow. You'll get an email announcing what's coming.
So for
Kevin,
everybody
I have a
out
question
there,
for you.
hold on. What's up? There's a voice. I hear a voice.
Yes,
Oh, it's a
there's a
surprise guest. It's Burton Brink. But Burton has a question for you, Kevin, and I'm going to let him chime in. I was saving you for an explosion there, Burton, but go ahead.
Well, here's my explosion. Kevin, when I get elected into this state assembly on the special election, February 15th, I will be joining you in the getting rid of Proposition 47. It is an absolute nightmare. It's AB 109, Prop 47, Prop 57. It's just that trifecta for criminals. I will be with you and support you come February 15th when I win this special election here in Los Angeles County.
Awesome. Well, best of luck to you, and thank you.
Thank you.
And
I've been supporting you, so here we are.
Thank you
Getting
very
that
much.
to a lead-in. So as we form a coalition, Kevin Kiley, I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. Thank you, especially for being a great friend of the movement, which is now called Rebuild California, throughout 2021.
Well, before Kevin totally
For
disappeared,
everybody out there, Kevin Kiley was the first politician in office to fully back the recall and take an active role in it. And a lot of people jumped on at the last minute.
He wrote the book on the recall.
That's right. He wrote the book on the recall. He did everything possible. So for anybody out there, if you want someone who's going to take next steps and you want someone out there that's really a politician of the people, cut the garbage. Listen to Orrin and myself. Kevin, as a politician, has been there the whole time. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on our show.
Wait a minute. Before Kevin totally disappears, I want to ask.
Why? What do you know? Do you have back people waiting outside his door or something?
No, they're outside my door.
But anyways, how can we get more people encouraged and involved on writing in or calling in for the state assembly?
Well, I think people have shown that they're willing to do that. And, when you look at things like they tried to do this big vaccine passport bill a few months ago before the legislature adjourned, and you had just tons of people who called in and that helped to stop it. So, I think that there are more and more people who are getting involved. And I think that, just engaging with people at the local level too, and encouraging them to form a relationship with their legislator or with their legislator's office, but also with their local elected officials too, because a lot of important policy happens at that level. And then those folks, like your school board members, can in turn put pressure on the legislator. So, I think that we're definitely on the right track because the movement is continuing to grow. More people are getting involved. There's a big rally at the Capitol on Monday, and you guys have been a big part of that. So thank you for everything you're doing. Thank you everyone who's watching for being, being active, for being in the fight. I think 2022 is going to be a great year.
So I
Thank you,
Thank
Kevin.
you, Kevin. God bless. And Tim, that's
I'm
not
going
a
to share
question
my.
for Kevin.
Well,
Tim?
what's the question?
That's a question for you. How do you and I and Mike get more people involved in calling in? So we will have that conversation as we go forward, but that is absolutely a question for us and not Kevin. Kevin is doing his job and he's stellar. God bless Kevin. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys. Have a great night.
Thank you, Kevin. Have a good
Appreciate
one.
it.
And by the way, Tim, I love what you did
Night,
this
Kevin.
week, putting links up to various hearings. And I think we could continue to say that if you sign up for the rebuildcalifornia.com email list and read it, you will find links to various hearings. You will also find the candidates that we support. Now, our surprise guest, who's no longer a surprise because he blew his cover. I could tell, Burton, you were never an undercover cop, but let's put that down for a second here, right?
You know what, Bert? Hey, Burton and I could never go undercover because our cover would be blown the minute we walked in line.
Absolutely.
So before I get there with the introduction, let me explain something for everybody out there. 2022 is not an event, it's a series of events. And what I was leading up to with the resignation of Miss Gonzalez, which only upsets me slightly, the former assembly person in Burton's district, whose name I'm not going to use because I refuse to cuss on the air, has taken a better job basically as a judge. And simply, obviously, that couldn't wait 3 or 4 months. That means this is one of many special elections being triggered as the Democrats scatter to various corners, if you will. Burton, tell us again about what you're running for, where you're running, how people could get involved, and then I'm going to finish with a blast about you. Hit me.
Awesome.
Rock and roll, Burton.
Thank you, Mike, Orrin, everybody, and great to see Kevin on here. He's fabulous. We need more people like him and me in Sacramento. My name is Burton Brink. I'm a retired sergeant from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and I'm a current commissioner in the city of Arcadia. I found out on December 11th that on December 10th at 5 p.m., they made an announcement that there will be a special election on February 15th for the 49th Assembly District. That is where the person that Mike doesn't want to say, his name is Ed Chow, and he has been in the state assembly for the last 11 years. He still had another term that he could do, and he is as far left progressive as you could possibly be. Long story short, I got down to the registrar's office on Monday, I think it was the 13th, and I pulled my papers. In less than 3 days, I was able to get enough signatures to get my name on the ballot. Thank God I did that, because had I not done that, this election would have been quietly done and behind the iron curtain, so to speak, and we would have a new assembly member who would have been unopposed. So it's so important that one, that I got on the ballot and I was able to get all the signatures I needed to do so. But now we got to make sure that the person who is been the chosen one by the Democratic Party to continue the progressive policies of the far left of Ed Chow. I call him Ed Chow 2.0, and his name is Mike Fong. And Mike Fong wants to continue these far progressive policies that Ed Chow has been doing. It is destroying the state of California. It's time to get some common sense back up into Sacramento. I've been supporting Kevin Kiley since day one. He is absolutely awesome. We need to continue with that. And of course, he apparently is going to be going a step up. But like I was telling him, when I get elected on February 15th, I will be in Sacramento immediately, and I will be holding the seat until December 5th. Obviously, because that's when this term is up. But I'm also running in the 2022 election, which is in the June primary in November.
We got to get you in there.
We got it. Absolutely. So
yep.
I will be supporting Kevin with this legislation that he's trying to do and repeal Proposition 47 that's destroyed us. I will also be running in the 2022 regular election. How people can help me is they can go to burtonbrink.com. It's BURTON. BRINK.com. That'll take you to my website. It's all updated. We finally got everything all fixed on there. It's got a donation link. Let me tell you something. The mail-in ballots for this election come out on January 20th. It's between the 17th and the 21st that they have to put out the mail-in ballots. That's 2 weeks away, folks. 2 weeks away for the special election that's due on February 15th.
Where is this election taking place in our state right now?
Awesome. So this is in Los Angeles County, the western portion of Los Angeles County in the San Gabriel Valley. It covers Arcadia, Alhambra, San Gabriel, San Marino, Temple City, Rosemead, Monterey Park, El Monte, South El Monte, and the portions of Montebello. So I need you to get all your friends out there to pay attention to what's going on.
Absolutely.
When they receive their ballot. They got to vote in person, vote via mail, whatever you need to do. Special elections don't get done.
We need door knockers. We need people down there in that valley. We need in that region, and we need to. So Burton, send me a map of your
It's on his
area.
website.
And all right,
My
well,
website.
okay, I'm gonna coordinate with Burton to get people working out on the street for that. So God bless
Absolutely.
Burton.
Absolutely.
God
That
bless.
and phone calls. Phone calls will help as
Yes.
well. So if you're out of the area, you can be able to call off of your cell phone. It won't show your cell phone number. We'll
Yep.
make sure all that information once that site gets set up. And then that way we can it'll just put you in a rotation of hitting people's phone numbers to call.
Mechanism that is out there where you can send text messages, you can
Absolutely.
make phone calls, you can be from Sacramento and help this in LA.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So-
And of course, what does any campaign need? It needs money. This is a special election. They've got hundreds of thousands of dollars already in their coffers. This was a last minute run. I wasn't planning on running, but because of the special election and the other opponents, Mike Fong's his website says he wants to continue the progressive policies of Ed Chow. That
No.
made me look at my wife, said, honey, I got to run. And she says, absolutely. I support you. Get out there. We're known
Get
in the
out,
community.
get in.
We are known. We have our signs are already out, as you see in the background from me. These are
Yep.
already out. We just need more money so we can get all this information out. We can push out these text messages, get out mailers, get everything out to people. It's so imperative that we get people to vote. Special elections have people sit on their butts and not vote. And if you don't vote, we're losing elections. And that's
why they
now
want
here.
this done in a special election so they can circumvent the regular
Exactly.
elections. Yes, exactly.
And Burton,
During Christmas of all times, they did this. Nobody's paying attention, and this election is
No.
just before Valentine's Day. So what's everybody paying attention
Son of
for
a
now?
bitch.
Valentine's Day. They're not giving a damn about these elections. We need to have someone who's going to speak for the people in Sacramento, like Kevin Kiley, myself, and Gallagher, and some others that are up there. We need more like us. So let's go. I need
100%.
everyone's help.
Burton Brink.
Burton, thank you very much. Again, it's a fight to take the state back. Before we wrap up the show here, Burton, thank you. We're going to have you back on again. We'll be talking very, very soon. It's a fine looking website you got, by the way. I'd like to find out who did that for you. Tim, do you want to add anything before I roll to the end here?
I do before Tim does. I do. I want to add something. I want to say, Mike, thank you so much. I know you're under the weather. You're not feeling well. You've been sick for a couple of days and you still came forward to help host this show. And God bless my friend. I couldn't do this without you. I wouldn't do it without you. And you've been a champion for everything that we're doing going forward and what we've done so far. And I'm so fortunate and thankful to have you on as a teammate. And, God bless. And thank you personally from me to you, public appreciation. I appreciate it. And I just want to say, let's charge ahead, my friend.
Appreciate that, brother, more than you know, and back at you.
Oh yeah, we totally appreciate you, Mike. And I when I heard your voice the other day, I was like, oh gosh, Mike's not going to be on today. And
no, but I did
did
audition for the part of Halloween 13.
Well, you were sounding like Wolfman Jack for a minute.
Yeah. Listen, everybody out there, as we roll the end, we try to stay these on time. I appreciate everyone here. I appreciate the team and the people of California. Let me tell you something. We that stand for the state must continue to stand and push forward. And for everybody out there, direct democracy. And direct democracy isn't more even than the petitions and initiatives. Every week, what I need you to do is tune in on this. Tell people about it. Go to Rebuild California, rebuildcalifornia.com. Make sure you sign up. If you're under the weather, you're feeling bad like I am, who cares? We must push forward because it is our state. And every little corner from Burton Brink's Assembly District, to the school board, to the water board, to every board that's out there, to every elected office, to every street corner. We have a chance in 2022, like we have not had in California in 30, 40 years, to take back this state. But it requires all of you. Participate in social media. Follow me at Nettermite. Follow Orrin Heatlie. Do something about Burton Brink. Donate $5. Sign up for our mailing list. Do everything you can, because every little brick counts. Every little moment counts. And all these moments put together will allow us to take back and rebuildcalifornia.com to take back our state, because it is our damn state and no one is going to stand in our way in 2022. Thank you. God bless and good night.